What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Potsa Podcast. My name is Travis. Before we get started into this, will you guys please like, subscribe, comment, share, all that good stuff. We're at 50 subscribers on YouTube now, so a little milestone. Hooray. And just looking to grow the community within the Potsa Podcast. It's been great, all these interactions and, conversations we've been able to have over the past few months starting this podcast, and I'd really love to continue that. So please like, comment, subscribe, share, do all that good stuff. We're back a week later after the 2-0 defeat to Fluminense, however you pronounce it, the Brazilian club that is still going in the FIFA Club World Cup. They just dispatched Simone Inzaghi's Al Hilal in the quarterfinals this past weekend. So they are one of the 4 teams, along with Real Madrid, PSG, and Chelsea, that are made up of the semifinals for the FIFA Club World Cup. I came live after the game, after the match, in the parking garage. Just kind of gave some quick, unfiltered, really unthought out comments and thoughts, hot takes, if you will, what we call it here in the U.S., in the States, and kind of unfiltered, just wanted to give an immediate reaction of what my thought was after that 2-0 loss. And I'm going to give more of a thought out update and kind of where we are as a status of a club currently. So that's kind of the point of this episode. But first things first, what we're going to talk about, of course, is the words that Lautaro Martinez said post-match against Fluminense. I recorded, and it was like 30 minutes later he came out and made that statement, and then it was like 45 minutes later to an hour that Beppe Marotta came out and said what he said. So I kind of want to give my thoughts on that since I didn't really get to last week. For me, it's simple what Lautaro said. That's what you want in a captain. He didn't name names. That was Beppe Marotta. We need to remember that. And as Inter, as this club, as who we are, there is no mistake about it. We are the best club in Italy currently, and we should be fighting for every title, whether it's domestic or continental within Europe, or even internationally in the FIFA Club World Cup. We should be one of the top teams with our squad year in and year out. We should be winning the Scudetto every year with our squad, and I agree with them wholeheartedly. If you don't want to be a part of the squad and really fight and whatnot, then leave. It's fine. No player is replaceable or is not replaceable. During that era, the stretch of all the Scudetti that we won in the 2000s, we thought Ibrahimovic was untouchable. He was our MVP, Capocannoniere, few years in a row, unstoppable. No defender in Italy could stop him. And it looked like, he was going to carry us year in and year out, which he did when he was at the club. And whenever we lost him, immediately whenever we had that deal for him to go to Barcelona, I think I was pretty scared at what we were going to be as a club. We're losing our best player, and we were just getting who I thought at the time was just an out-and-out striker, Samuel Eto'o, and some money. And it turned out to be one of the greatest transfers in the history of the sport, of the history of European football. And so we got to remember that. None of these players are untouchable. Inter as a club is way bigger than any of these players. I think the problem and the issue that we have with these comments came after with Beppe Marotta. And that is something that I don't still, a week later, understand what the point of him coming out and singling out Çalhanoğlu was, when it's clear that there's other players that Lautaro Martinez was talking about. But as far as from what Lautaro Martinez did and what he said, I'm 100% on board with him. If you are not 100% committed to Christian Kivu as your coach, committed to challenging on all fronts for Inter, and committed to the cause ultimately for this club, then leave. It will be okay. I'd much rather you leave than not give 110% on the pitch week in and week out. And so as far as that goes, grande Lauti, I really appreciate those. Somebody had to say it. And I'm glad that our captain took the initiative like a captain should have and should come out and speak. And hopefully we filter out some of the dead weight. Since we wrapped up the Seconda Stella, the second star. It was like what, early March of 2024. The performances domestically in Italy have just not been good enough. In the Champions League, obviously making it to the final, that historic run to the final was great. Not going to complain about the Champions League performances, but domestically, it just fell flat week in and week out. And that's a problem. And I'm glad somebody called him out. I wish that Beppe Marotta would have kept a little bit of a lid on his statements and maybe even following up. I wish Javier Zanetti maybe would come out and came out and made a statement. He's really the icon of the club. And if he would have came out and backed Lautaro, not mentioned any names, but kind of echoed that sentiment that Lautaro had, I think it would have gone a long way. But I don't have a problem with what Lautaro Martinez said. I think that is what you need from a captain. And when you're with a club like Inter that has the best squad, has the best team, stands for something, and is ultimately, in my eyes, the best club in the world, you can't settle for players who are just going to half-ass and not give their all for the badge. So I really appreciate those words from Lautaro Martinez. And hopefully, this filters out some of the, don't want to say dead weight, but some of the players that aren't going to give their all to the cause. And that's kind of going to move us on to kind of the next three players that could be on their way out. First things first, I think Hakan Çalhanoğlu with the dust up after Marotta said that Lautaro Martinez was talking only about Hakan, the immediate response from Hakan's wife, the post from Hakan in response to Lautaro. There's reports that the guys have talked and kind of squashed it. I don't think there's any way back, unfortunately, for Hakan in this squad after what just happened. Really do love Hakan as a player since he's moved to that deep lying role. When he's at his best, there's only 1, 2, 3 midfielders in the world that can play that position better than him, if any. He's got the passing range ability. He's got the long range shots. He's got the technical ability. His defensive rate and work and tackling ability over the past few years has improved. He's got it all. But he has seemed checked out, especially since he's come back from injury this past year. And, leaving the team in the States, he said that he was injured. I don't want to speculate that no one was injured, but then also to see the videos he's posting of him working out on the beach, semi-intense workouts. I don't know. Again, don't want to speculate that anybody's faking an injury or anything like that. And I also understand if he wants to go play for Galatasaray, that's, his dream as a player. Go. I mean, that's fine. I 100% appreciate that. Any player should, if they have the ability, play for their dream club. And so I think if that's something he wants to do, I think we shouldn't stand in the way of him wanting to do that. And it would suck to see Hakan leave, but I wouldn't be necessarily upset. He's on the other side of 30. He's a player that has only a couple years left on his contract. So if we get 20, 25, 30 million for Hakan, save some money on the wages, it would suck. Again, like I'm saying, it's something I don't want to see, but I think it's time. And I think right now is the perfect time for Hakan to leave. So we'll see where that ends up. There's hasn't been much news or updates on that in the following past few days. So we'll just have to see and wait what happens with Hakan. But as far as a dust up and everything, I just don't see him fitting into this team any longer. You can't really recover after having something like that blatantly open in the media. In my eyes, I think it's just the best for the club and the team as a whole if we find a solution without Hakan moving forward. And then apparently Dumfries was a little disturbed and rattled, which is amazing to me by these comments from Lautaro Martinez. I don't think Lautaro was talking at all about Dumfries. And again, this is just media reports. And I had made a post earlier in the week about how the media unjustly treats Inter as a club, specifically the Italian media. So these could just be reports coming out to rattle the club. But then the news surfaces about Denzel Dumfries' release clause only being, 20, 25 million euros active until July 15th, which as of today is the 7th. So about a week. And clubs wanting to sign Dumfries after his performances. And this is another one I'm more torn on because the last 6 months of the season maybe is skewing our views on how we view Dumfries. If you look at it from maybe December of 2024, 25 million for Dumfries, I think maybe we would take. He's a player that's very direct, very strong, very fast. Technically, maybe not the most technically gifted player. He relies a lot on his attributes physically. Some of the misplaced touches and passes pre that December, 2024 kind of turnaround that Dumfries had, I think a lot of us as fans were frustrated with and dreaming of the days that we had Hakimi and the difference between Hakimi and Dumfries. And then this last 6 months, he came and really became the best player for Inter and showed a different side of his play. But in the 4 years that he's been here, we've had that 6 months of consistency versus 3.5 years of one good performance, one bad performance, even within game, 10 minutes of really great football, and then just 10 minutes of shite touches, losing the ball, not being able to beat your man, indecisiveness. I think Dumfries is a very important player for this squad. I don't want to lose him this season, but he's only got 2 years left on his contract. He held out for a while on his contract before signing the renewal. And he's a player that once he loses his physical attributes, if he loses some strength, some from speed, what kind of a player does he become? He's a very he's a very direct player. And that's why I think, you see these news reports coming out of Barcelona and Manchester City wanting and being the clubs interested in Dumfries. And I don't really see how Dumfries, especially in a Pep Guardiola system, where we see these outside backs slotting into the midfield a lot of the time. Even Barcelona, I don't, the quick passing, he would be decent on a high press, I feel like, but I don't see really where he fits in a club in a system like that. I think his style of play is really suited to our direct, over the top kind of style that he thrives in and has thrived in the last 6 months. So who knows? It could be just reports coming out to rattle Inter from the Italian media, but that's one to keep an eye on. The replacement is Dodo, that a lot of people are mentioning from Fiorentina. Had a good season, but I think it's a big downgrade from Dumfries. So that's something we have to look out. And then finally, one that I think Lauti was definitely pointing out was Benji Pavard. Left the States because of an injury, then being pictured playing pickleball with the villain Teo Hernandez, seemingly not injured as far as we know, and that really left a sour taste in my mouth. I've enjoyed Benji Pavard. I think he's a class player on his day. I think that performance against Milan was at the Supercopa that he, you know, those last ditch tackles against Leao. He has really high level of class in his bag. But again, if you're not 100% committed to the cause, you can leave the club. It's as simple as that. And we'll see. I think, that coming out, we haven't seen a statement from Pavard yet. Does he owe us one? That's kind of up for you guys to decide. But I would not be upset if Pavard left the club and we found a replacement for him as well. So those are the three names that have been mentioned the most. There was rumors of Marcus Thuram being upset and all that stuff. I think that was just a rumor. He's obviously always going to be getting links to Juventus due to his past with his father playing there and now his brother playing there. And that's something we're just going to have to get used to. I don't think he necessarily is the one that we have to be upset or worried about not being fully committed to the club. So those are kind of my three big ones that we have to be on the lookout for over the next couple of weeks. But we can also talk about the moves that we have made as a club and kind of what that shows as intent and the moves that we are going to be making, the future moves potentially. So first move we've talked about, Pedar Sucic. Big fan of him from what I've seen in the Club World Cup. The first match he came in looked a little slow and rusty. Kind of has grown into the club each match that he's played. I think there's a huge role for him in the midfield, depending on if we go 3-4-1-2, 3-4-2-1, stay with that 3-5-2. I think he can plug and play in a lot of different areas. I've said he reminds me kind of Fabian Ruiz, plays for PSG, used to play for Napoli. Very technically gifted, can pick the ball up deep and kind of run at players with his long stride. Has a good array of passing. Haven't really seen much of the kind of Hakan dink over the top from deep, but maybe that's not his role. He got mentioned a lot as a Brozovic type player whenever we signed him. I think just due to the Croatian, links of midfielder with Inter. But the more you watch him, the more you see maybe Kovacic or, for, like I said, for me, Fabian Ruiz. And I'm really excited about this player. Don't want to overhype him too much, but I think this is kind of a player in the midfield that will definitely come in and improve upon over Mkhitaryan. Maybe push someone like Zielinski to really up their game if they want minutes, especially if Zielinski's now going to be placed behind him. Mkhitaryan, who might move more into a forward role, we'll see. And it puts a lot of pressure on the other midfielders too to up their game because now Sucic is here. It's not just Aslani and Zielinski's hurt and Fratesi, who can only score one every 8 games and can't, put together a pass. So I think this is a great signing. Luis Enrique, he's one the jury's still out on me. He joined like a week before the FIFA Club World Cup. Hasn't had much time with the squad as far as training. There's that language barrier there too. Speaking Portuguese, I think maybe only Carlos Augusto speaks Portuguese on the squad. Probably understands a little bit of French, so he can communicate with some of these players. But there's still that Italian language barrier as well. He's a couple of times lost the ball while trying to take his player on one-on-one and hasn't tracked back. This all could be just trying to fit into the club. The jury's still out on Luis Enrique. For the fee we paid for him, $25 million, hopefully he is somebody that we can rely on playing that right wing back position, especially if Dumfries leaves. That's going to be the same fee, roughly, Dumfries leaving, that we've paid for Luis Enrique. So kind of expecting a very similar output then due to those fees from Luis Enrique. Hopefully he builds and improves upon the performances we saw in the FIFA Club World Cup, because it wasn't good enough simply in the FIFA Club World Cup, but giving him sort of a pass as of now. Bringing in Pio, they're pretty much confirmed that Pio Esposito is going to be staying with Inter for this next season. So that's also big news. Very exciting. A striker that's more of a target striker, can hold up the play, an out-and-out finisher, kind of an old-school throwback poacher. If we, he would be more effective in those late game when we sent, 10 minutes left in the match, we sent on Taremi. If we sent on a Pio, I'd feel more comfortable, maybe getting a late equalizer or bagging a winner. Due to just his movement, his physicality in the box, Taremi didn't want any of that physicality in the box. He was scared and timid. And Pio has some movement, and he wants to get tussled in with these center backs. He wants to get in dirty with Rahmani and a Buongiorno and players like this, I feel like. And it could be really good for the club and take a little bit of a load off of Lautaro and Thuram, maybe in those situations, having to be physical. So really excited to see what Pio can bring to this club, his boyhood club. You saw what that goal that he scored against, who was it? River Plate meant to him. So hopefully big things coming from Pio. And then the most recent signing, Boni from Parma. Super excited about this guy. That goal against Monza that we've all seen since the signing, that you see kind of one of his highlight goals of the season, just has you salivating and thinking about what this player can become. He's only 21 years old, so we've gotten 21-year-old Boni and I think it's 19-year-old Pio Esposito replacing an older Correa, who I think is 29, and then Arnautovic, who's 35, 36. Getting younger on that front. Boni has a lot of good tools in his game to be a different type of striker, a very Thuram-esque striker for us. He's just got to get more goals in his bag, which hopefully can come. And I'm really excited about this signing. I think Boni is going to be one that for the next few years is going to be a great signing for us. And we're going to see down the road, year after year, improvements upon him. And the fact that he was an Inter fan growing up, that picture he posted on his social media, if you haven't seen it, him wearing an Eto'o jersey, saying that this is a dream of his. If that doesn't make you happy as an Inter supporter, then I don't know what does. again, we need players who are 100% committed to this badge, and that's the most important thing. So those are the moves we've made. Got some, speculative moves in the transfer, but we'll see how those kind of line up. I'm kind of excited with these moves that we've made, but there is one thing that has made me nervous about the upcoming season, and that is the fact that we have not signed a defender. As you could see last season, our defense was not where it was the season before, the Scudetto winning season. Serie A, traditionally, I've seen this been mentioned by Nima on the Italian football podcast, Uncle Sharma on his podcast. You see it mentioned on any Italian football podcast, any podcast you hear about football, about the Serie A. Traditionally, the winner of the Serie A is the team with the best defensive record. Towards the end of that Scudetto winning season, our defense kind of was a little leaky, but we already had the Scudetto, sealed. And then last season, just the stupid goals and the goals out of nowhere that we leaked, even in the FIFA Club World Cup too this past tournament, the goals you can see that we leaked in, it's concerning. And the fact that we haven't addressed that yet is one thing that really is kind of concerning to me. And I think we need to address it sooner than we make moves anywhere else on the pitch. The names that we're linked to as well don't really inspire too much confidence. They're players that have promise and are players for the future, that are good players, but not great players. And I think this defense needs one signing that is a stud signing. I think we need to find a player and identify him that is someone that can come in and immediately improve our back line. If you guys want to comment down below who is someone, not, Coney de Winter or Leone that we've been linked to. I'm talking a bigger name, someone that we're going to have to spend cash on to bring in and has that veteran experience. But that's what ultimately I want to see, the next move we make. I think the next move, especially if it's a defensive move, and I think that the defensive move that we do end up making kind of signals what intent we have moving forward for this season. If we sign, Leone, and so just really only Leone or Coney de Winter, I think that kind of signals waving the white flag, that this is kind of a Napoli winning season again, maybe a title defense for them. And I don't like that. If we make a signing, whether it be both Leone and Coney de Winter, or one of the two plus a more experienced defender, I think that signals and is a statement that we're here to challenge for the Scudetto, and not just challenge for top four. We're here to challenge for that top spot. So I think the defense is the most important thing we need to see from the rest of this defensive improvement, I should say, is the thing we need to see. And I think the club needs to focus on over the next few weeks who we get and how will it improve our defense. And I think that also means signings that are leaving. I think, we need to, unfortunately for me, say goodbye to one of De Vrij or Acerbi. I love both of the guys. I think De Vrij has been super underrated the last couple seasons, especially under Simone Inzaghi. I think he doesn't get the playing time he deserves. But also Acerbi, whenever he plays, is great. So, and Acerbi, how can we forget that goal he scored versus Barcelona, the strikers that he's pocketed as he gets older. But maybe the game is now moving too fast for him. And that's something we've seen. PSG, one of the worst games I've ever seen Francesco Acerbi play. The Club World Cup really didn't inspire too much confidence in Acerbi's play. And maybe it's time to say goodbye. Reports with him being linked for a move with Simone Inzaghi, going to Al Hilal. If it's time, it's time. If we have to keep De Vrij, that's fine. If we have to get rid of, I don't want to get rid of both, but I want to get rid of maybe one. So if we have to keep De Vrij, I think he's still got some left in the tank and can be a good mentor to whoever we bring in. But I want to see us linked with a big name. Maybe it's Kim Jim May from Bayern. Maybe that's someone that we need to look at. Maybe it's both Leone and Coney de Winter. I'd be fine with that. But I think we need multiple additions, especially if Acerbi leaves, Pavard or Bisek leave, or both, these are holes that we're going to have to fill and fill them fast and get them integrated with the squad. So that's the one thing I'm looking for the most, and the most concerning area for me as far as Inter this upcoming transfer window is something we need to address. For me is this lack of defensive solidity that we've seen in the past year and a half since we've pretty much wrapped up the Scudetto. And then lastly, just some other names we've been linked to elsewhere: Ederson and Richard Rios, Atalanta and Palmeiras players. The price tags for these guys are relatively high. I don't know how we can justify spending 60 million on an Atalanta player who traditionally Atalanta players, when they come to another club, don't have that spark. Most recently, Coop Miners for Juve. We've seen it with Gagliardini for Inter, and Gosens for Inter. There's other players that you can mention. Hoyland when he went to Manchester United. I don't know. Sometimes tradition and these things, it seems like there's not a link, but sometimes there is. So signing an Atalanta player for that much money, or a player from the Brazilian league, shout outs to the Brazilian league and the work they've done in this FIFA Club World Cup. But signing a midfielder who's 25 coming out of Palmeiras, who's never really had much European, if any, European experience, it's a risk for 40 million euros. And I keep saying the name Nico Paz, probably not realistically, but it's like, why not just spend the 40 million, 60 million on Nico Paz and someone else? 60 million, you could maybe bring in Nico Paz and Coney de Winter instead of bringing Ederson. So I don't really understand the links there. You guys let me know what you think about Ederson. He was raved on as one of the best midfielders in the Serie A and even in Europe last season. So if he's a signing you really want to make as an Inter supporter, let me know down in the comments why, and give me a reason where he would fit in our squad. And same with Richard Rios. Whatever you think on him, let me know down, or just whoever you want to see. But that's going to wrap it up. Again, like I said, this is kind of like a pulse check, a status, kind of seeing where we are as a club. If there's any updates or anything for next week, we'll talk about those and dive a little deeper. If you guys want to look into maybe a little bit of deeper content into some of our signings that we've made, or just, some Inter news, check out Uncle Sharma on YouTube. I'll leave a link to his channel down below on my YouTube page. And yeah, just please keep supporting the channel and let me know any comments. Again, like I've said, this whole channel was pretty much created for me to interact with people, not having much interaction about Inter or the Serie A at all, being from the southern United States. So yeah, just comment, let me know, and we can get a little good dialogue started. But that's going to do it for me. As always, Forza Inter, and until next time, guys.